Oh, hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. The previous session, we are a little bit late because of that. Some of them are still having lunch, but
Okay.
after 10 minutes, and most of the participants will join again. So, but still, we can still start and we can still go ahead. So, if you are willing, then we can wait 1 or 2 minutes like that. Then after that, we'll start.
No, we can. I can wait also.
Only
Right now, 22 participants are there.
Yeah, 33 participants are there.
Okay.
So they will join. They will join up here. Only a few minutes, and then after some time, then yeah. But here we still, most of us are still joining. So and also
sorry for the inconvenience, sir. Please.
Here this is Dr. Guram Ramakrishna is one of our colleagues again.
Good afternoon, sir. Sorry for the inconvenience, sir. Please.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No problem.
Only 1 minute. Yeah, only 1 or 2 minutes. Then we can go ahead. Okay. Dr. Sir Graham, I think that will be enough now. 1 or 2 minutes, and then right after that we can start. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. We'll start the session.
Yeah, I think we can start. Sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to welcome you on behalf of the organizing team, Department of Commerce, Mizoram University, and HRDC here. Today, we are very lucky to have you here. And just before you start the class, like this session, and I just want to give a brief introduction about the resource person for today. Here today, we are having Dr. Manjit Das for our resource person today, and he is a professor and head in the Department of Economics in Bodoland University in Assam, and he has 24 years of teaching experience, and he has also completed 7 research projects, and he has guided so many research scholars and even all the student dissertation, and he has been involved in this kind of academic activities and even administrative works as well. He's very expert, and we are very lucky to have him here to be the resource person for today. And Sir is also having ongoing international collaboration with Queen University, Belfast, that is UK. And he has 22 research paper in reputed journals, different reputed journals, and he has also published 7 edited book and 5 books, including that edited books, and that is a very good achievement and good contribution for the scholar and for the student across the country, and as well as the student in all over the world. So we really appreciate all his work and his contribution and all the academic activities he has done. That is for like the student and all the student, and even his all his scholars will really proud of him as we do here today. And he used to be in a member. He used to be a member in the different bodies and executive and all the committees, and he has a lot of experience in this regard. So, sir, today we are very thankful to you once again for giving your time, and we're really eager to listen your lectures. And I do hope that all the participants will also enjoy the class, and we really hope that we could get we could receive lots of information and all the things that the good word for the development of our works and the development of our personality and the development for everything in that academic work as well. So thank you so much, sir. So right now you can start this your presentation. So if you want to have any clarity or something like that, here the two coordinators are joining here. Dr. Guram is also available, so you can ask us. And so even for the dear participant, if you have any questions from his presentation, so you can drop in this question and answer box, and after sir is doing his presentation, and so we can have, I hope that we can have discussion and the question and answer time as well. Okay, so thank you so much, sir. Thanks to everyone. So sir, you can start right now.
A very good afternoon to all. Thank you, Mizoram University, for inviting me to speak on a important topic. Right now, may I know that how many participants are there in total?
30, sir. 30 participants.
30.
In total, there are 40 participants are there. They're about to join. As you know,
Okay,
that
okay. And
the session was ended a little bit.
Okay, and they are from different states of India.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then perhaps there are teachers from different 3 departments: commerce, economics, and management.
Yes.
And since I am from economics, and that's why I am not using the hardcore economics, and so I have selected one topic which will be suitable for all these 2 departments. And now I'm sharing the slides. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now I want to talk on this, the growth of Indian economy.
Sir, will you put it in the slideshow mode?
Slideshow mode, just a minute.
There is a cup symbol at the percentage, sir, in the right side bottom. Cup symbol is there. Right side bottom corner. Otherwise, increase the percentage, sir. Zoom percentage. Sir, not that much, sir. So just beside that 60%, one cup symbol is there, sir. You can press on that. 60% is there, no? Just left side of that.
Just a minute. Slideshow.
Right side bottom
Right side bottom.
bottom corner. 60 just beside the 60% is there, no? That cup symbol is there.
Yes.
Yes.
I can see. Slideshow. Okay. Now it is okay.
Yes, sir. Now it is okay. Perfect.
My topic today is on the growth of Indian economy, that is before independence and the post-independence India. Now, if I say about present-day India, so that is today we are 18 out of 100 in the world populations, and in terms of GDP, we are the 5th largest economy in the world, and that is more than $3 trillion. And in terms of purchasing power parity, we talk in terms of this PPP. That is, we stand at rank number 3, next to USA and China. But if we consider ourselves in terms of GDP per capita, that time we stand at 142nd position, and in terms of per capita, that is, our position is 128. But at the same time, in case of global hunger index, our position is 101 out of 116 countries in the world in 2021. And in case of ease of doing business, we have improved a lot. And in the last year, we were in the 63rd position. However, in the inequality index, India ranked 69 positions, where top 1% shares 20% wealth of the nation. That is our present position. Now, if we want to study the growth of Indian economy from pre-independence era to you can say to 2022, just to know that, thus I have categorized our growth story into 3 different parts, mainly 2. There is a pre-independence and a post-independence. And in the pre-independence period, that I have taken from 1 century to 1000 century. It should not be 1947, it is 1000 century. And within that, we can say that I have subcategorized it into 3 categories. There is pre-Muslim period, that is from 180 to 1000 AD. Then during the Muslim rule, from, you can say, suppose from 1000 to up to the British rule, before the arrival of the British, and the third one is during the British Raj, up to 1947. And in the independent period, in the independent India, I have categorized into mainly 2, from 1947 to 1990, before the liberalization, privatization, and globalizations, and after 91 to 2020. And within that, 1947 to 1990, I have categorized today's presentation into 6 categories from 1947 to 64, from 1964 to 66, 1966 to 77, 1977 to 1980, 1980 to 84, 1984 to 89, on the basis of the rule of different political parties. And from 1991 to 2020, and just before the COVID-19, I have taken from 1991 to 1996, that is during the regime of P.V. Narasimha Rao, 1998 to 2004, that is under the Atal Bihari Vajpayee's regime, and 2004 to 2014, that is during the regime of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, and 2014 to, you can say, till today. Then today, just if I ask anyone that in the 20th century, which is the richest country, which was the richest country in the world, definitely the answer will be the USA. In the 19th century, that was the UK. In the 18th century, that was the China. And in 17th century, surprisingly, India was the richest country in the entire world. Again, in 16th and 15th century, that was China. And the most surprising thing is that from 1st century to the 14th century, India was the richest and wealthiest nation of the entire world. And from that first position, we came now, you can say, to the 5th positions. Now we are improving. And now how these changes have taken place from this period that we will discuss today. Let us talk from the 1st century. In the 1st century, that India shared a population of 30% to the world population. And GDP was $33.7 billion. And GDP share to world was, that is 32%. Or we can say 1/3 of total GDP or world GDP was contributed by India. And India was followed by China. And it had a GDP of $26.8 billion. And the 3rd position was occupied by France with $2.3 billion. Now, from 1st century to 1000 AD, India and the China, or you can say the Asia occupied the major portion of the world GDP. And we can say that India and China was the richest country in the entire world. Now, from 1000 AD, we can see that there is a decline in the share of India towards the global GDP. And that may be because of more civilization were coming out. And that may be another, that may be because of that, what we say, that is the external aggression from other nations towards India. In 1000 AD, India's share to the world GDP was 28%, and that was China's share was 22%, and the 3rd rank was occupied by the Japan by 3%, or we can say the entire up to 1000 AD also, that entire Asia contributed, we can say, 53% of world GDP. And we can say the remaining 47% was contributed by Europe or USA or Africa. Now, during Muslim rule, when we can say that from 11th century, that Muslim rulers came from Iran, Iraq, today's Iran, Iraq, and they settled here. And that time also, up to 1400 AD, that India ranked first in terms of GDP in the entire world, but share of India's GDP to world GDP declined continuously. From, you can see it, from 33%, it was coming down and down and down. And here you can see China, that was 61 billion dollar, then its share went up to 25%, and India slipped down to second position for the first time. And in world population also, India's population was 18%, GDP was $59 billion, and GDP share was 24%, next to China. And Japan ranked the third in terms of GDP with $7.7 billion US, and its share improved from 3% to 12% of to world GDP. Now you can see that arrival of the Europeans to Asia, that first Portugal came for trading purpose in 1498, then British came in 1600, then Dutch came in 1602, then Danes 1666, 1616, and lastly the French came in 1664. Now you can see when the Britishers or the European came, what was the position of India that time? And from one quotation from J.T. Sunderland, we can understand what he wrote there, that nearly every kind of manufacture or product known to the civilized world, nearly every kind of creation of man's brain and hand existing anywhere and price either or its utility or beauty had long been produced in India. India was a greater industrial and manufacturing nation than any other Asia. Her textile goods, the fine products of her looms in cotton, the wool, linen, and silk were famous over the civilized world. So were her exotic pottery, porcelains, ceramics of every kind, quality, color, and beautiful shape. So were her fine works in metal, iron, steel, silver, and gold. She had great architecture, equal to beauty to any in the world. She had great engineering works. She had great merchant, great businessmen, great bankers, and the financiers. Not only was she the greatest shipbuilding nation, but she had great commerce and trade by land and sea, which extended to all known civilized countries. Such was India, which the British found when they came to India. Now, another Ramesh Chandra Datta, he wrote that India in the 18th century was a great manufacturing as well as a great agricultural country, and the Indian handloom supplied the market of Asia and Europe. So from these two statements and from others, the historian's statement also, we can easily understand that in the 18th century or at the time of the arrival of the Britishers and other European nations, India was very rich in terms of manufacturing, in terms of the handicrafts, then metal use, and in the field of agriculture. Now, here you can see that in the 700 or 1700, India's share, all GDP was 23%, as large as all of Europe put together. Industrial share in the India's industrial share was 25%. The value of Bengal's textile export alone is estimated to have been around 16 million rupees in 1750. Silk export from Bengal were worth another 6.5 million rupees annually till 1753. So during this period, if we talk about in terms of manufacturing industry, so in that period, the major industries were one, that is the textile industry, the second was the shipbuilding, and the third one was the iron and steel. But maximum people knows about the textile, but very few people are aware of this, that India was one major country where shipbuilding was there, and India produces ships for the Arabian nations also, and India exported ship also. And India was rich in iron and steel industry also. Now, during the time that what you say, the self-sustained village economy, then if you talk about the tax of the agricultural produce in terms of agriculture, that is 1/3 was the minimum tax to be paid to the rurals, and maximum it goes when the necessity of more revenues comes from the rural, also to the royal families, that it goes up to that was 1/3, and usually it was 1/6 of produce of the farmers. And apart from agriculture, artisans and craftsmen in urban area were also very much famous, and there were examples that there are examples are there where that artisans and craftsmen gathered in the urban areas, and they produce product for the Indian market as well as for the export purposes. Then about those products, we can talk about the famous product of muslin of Dhaka, the carpets of Lahore, shawls of Kashmir, embroidery works of Benares, shipbuilding was there, as I told earlier, that iron and steel products were also famous all over the world. That means that Indian economy was an Atmanirbhar economy during the time. And when the East India Company came, initially, they encouraged Indian industries because they made money by exporting England and other European nations. But because of the competitive cost advantage of these Indian industries captured the European market, and as a result, the British manufacturers in Britain, they were losing their own market as the Britishers were demanding more and more the Indian products. And by that, the East India Company was making huge amount of profit, and which was not liked by many manufacturers in Great Britain. So these manufacturers pressurized the British government to impose high tax on Indian products, which were exported by the East India Company from India to Britain, and encouraged and they pressurized the British government to encourage British manufacturers to sell in Indian market, just to happen opposite. And after the Battle of Palashi in 1757, there was free trade for British without tax, while Indian had to pay tax. That means gradually East India Company started to work for the British industries and against the Indian manufacturers. That was the beginning. And gradually, they they adopted just the opposite policy, and now which was against Indian industries, or what we call it the deindustrialization in India, and how Britishers ruined the Indian industries and for their industrializations. And as you know, that during that period, that industrial revolution was going on in Britain, and many machineries and technological development were seen in the field of manufacturing, and especially in the field of textile. And and what we saw that there was a deindustrialization in India, and there was industrialization, and now we often talk about the Manchester, which is famous for its cloth. And that's why we can call it that Britain's industrial revolution, for which they were very proud of, that was built on the destruction of Indian prosperous manufacturing industries. And the British policy was to flood the Indian market with the British product, and British squeeze out the foreign buyers of Indian products. The other foreigners like the Dutch, then Danes, then Portuguese, they were also bringing some product from their own country to sell in Indian market. But they systematically squeeze out those foreign buyers from the Indian market, and they impose up to 80% tariff on Indian textile and handicrafts, on Indian export in 1820. And they even impose heavy taxes on internal trade also, so that we can say that Indian industries, Indian manufacturers cannot develop, and we often call it the one-way free trade policy. And in Bengal, they did not hesitate to break the terms of the weavers to stop the textile. That means, in spite of imposing heavy taxes on Indian textile and handicraft, if someone is there to challenge the British product, so they did not hesitate to break the terms of the weavers. And export was, that's why that export was almost impossible because of high price resulting from high tariff and control of ports by company. And if during those days, if we have to export product from India to any nations, any European nations or other countries, we had to export by ship, and all the ports were under the control of the Britishers. And so they were not allowing Indian products to be exported to abroad. And for the first time, India, which was the major exporter of textile, India became net importer of textile. And when textile industry weavers was dying, that time, along with that, its supporting industries like carding, dyeing, printing, and hand spinning start falling. And Britishers had no industrial policy for the development of our indigenous industry. And in the same way, our steel industry was also facing just the same time of problem. Like just you see that during those days, that already I said that India was famous for shipbuilding, and India was exporting ships to various nations, and India was making huge amount of money. But why? Because of that average lifespan of Bengal built ship exceeded 20 years. Its life expectancy was high. And whereas English built vessels never lasted more than 11 to 12 years. And they need often repair. And that may be because of the expertise of the shipbuilders and that may be because of the quality of wood, the quality of steel that were used in the shipbuilding, and because of low average cost, the freight of Indian made ships was much lower than that of British, and the East India Company and other European nations were also start building or start buying Indian ships during those days instead of buying the British made ships. And as a result, what happened? There was unemployment in the shipbuilding industry in Great Britain. And these shipbuilding companies could not compete with Indian, and they petitioned British Parliament to ban Indian shipbuilding. Now, after textile, they are going behind this shipbuilding. And the first legislative act in their favor came in 1813 and next in 1814. And thus, India's once flourishing shipbuilding industry collapsed, and by 1850, that the industry was completely extinct. And now you see that since the textile industry was systematically destroyed by the East India Company and later by the British government, and India became simply a exporter of raw cotton to feed the growing textile industry of Great Britain during these days. And if we see the growth of the export of raw cotton to Britain, you can see this data, 1850, there was 226.5, and which went up to 920.1 in 1910. That means in each decade, we can see there was an increase in export of raw cotton. And what was exported from India to Britain, and the British, or you can say the Manchester, they produced that cheap cloths, and they were exporting those finished products to Indian market. And Indian market was flooded with this finished British product, and we were losing our indigenous cotton textile industries. Now, then next, when these industries, then shipbuilding, then iron and steel, then textile, when these industries were declining, and the craftsmen, or you can say that the artisans, that time they had to leave their industries, they have to leave their business, and they have to leave their urban-centric manufacturing unit, and they left to, or they were pushed back to the rural areas in search of job, and they joined this agricultural sector. And as you know, already agriculture, India was, during those days, India was an agriculture-based economy, and majority of people were engaged in agriculture. So joining of these artisans and craftsmen in the field of agriculture again leads to overburden on agriculture. And later on, the British government introduced the zamindari system, and there was and we know the demerits of the zamindari system, where the farmers had to pay a high rate of tax to the British government through the zamindars, and the Britishers have no agricultural policy for the improvement of productivity, and the farmers were forced from food grains to the commercial agricultural product like cotton, jute, indigo, sugarcane, oilseeds, tea, coffee, rubber, etc. And here also, even in the field of agriculture, there was a problem of disguised unemployment, and because of high taxations, we can see, and because of regular famine, recurrent occurrence of famine, drought, we can say there was a reduction in the production of agricultural goods, and as a result, the poverty was increasing in India, and in between 1850 to 1900, the 2.8 crore people died in famines. Now you come to the 1800 AD, that India's GDP was $111 billion. That means there was a reduction, and GDP share was only 16% to world GDP, from 33% to 16%. That is the half. And China's GDP was 228 billion, and its share was 33% to world GDP. And whatever happened during this British regime, we can simply call it as a loot of British in India. And there was an estimation that how much Britishers looted in India during these 200 years. And that estimation says that in terms of 2015 price rate or constant price value, it was 3 trillion US dollar. 3 trillion US dollar, which is even less than today's Britain's GDP. And another example that I'm giving about the British loot in India, that is on Robert Clive first returned to England. He took in today's value 23 million UK pounds, which made him one of the richest men in England. And in 1975, he returned back to India. And again in 1777, he returned to Britain. And again, he took in today's value 40 million UK pounds. Worth of value 40 million UK pound. Only one person. So you can say one person looted, you can say 63 million UK pounds. And in between 1765 to 1815, British extracted 18 crores pound annually. So when Britishers left India in 1947, so what was the position of India? That was India's GDP was $38 billion. 80% people were below poverty line. And GDP share came down to 3% to world GDP. And you can see in 1000 AD, India shared 33% to world GDP. When Britishers came, it was around 1/4 to world GDP. And when Britishers left India, it contributed only 3% to world GDP. And from this estimation, we can see how Britishers looted India. And industrial share, which was more than 20% once when Britishers came to India, it came to only 2% to the world industrial share. And modern industry employed only 2.5 million people out of 350 million India's populations. That means the role of industry in Indian economy was almost minimum. And already I said that a loot of $3 million in terms of 2015 nominal price. Now, after independence, what the independent government, independent India did, you know about this first 5-year plan, the second 5-year plan, third plan, fourth, fifth, sixth, and up to, you can say, that 11th plan. And I have shown here the growth target of different 5-year plan and what was the actual growth and what was the focused area of the specific plan during this planning era. And thereafter, what I have shown in terms of GDP in terms of PPP, purchasing power parity, at constant price of 2021, you can see that in 1951, India had a GDP of 34 lakh, and in 2021, India's contribution is 11 trillion. So that is at constant prices of 2021. Now, if we talk in terms of GDP per capita in dollar at constant prices of 2021 in terms of PPP, that is in 1951, that per capita income was $738, and which went up to 12,884. And now, if we see the sectoral composition of India's GDP in 1950-51, that during those days, that agriculture and allied activities contributed 51.81%, industry contributed only 14.16%, mining and quarrying 0.75%, manufacturing 10.51%, service 33.25%. And in 2019, it's the share of primary sector that came down to 12%, secondary sectors contributions, that is manufacturing 15%, construction 8%, mining and quarrying, electricity, gas, water supply, that was 5%, and trade, hotels, that is the service sector, transport and communication, signaging, insurance, real estate, business services, and community social and personal services. As a service sector, it contributed 60%. Now, as I said earlier, if we decompose this era of independent India from 1951 to 2022, we can divide in four groups in terms of the GDP growth. From 1951 to 1975, the GDP growth was around 3% to 4% per annum, which we call it the Hindu growth rate. And from 1976 to 1990, where there was, you can say, there was a little bit of liberation in Indian economy. That time, the growth pace improves a little bit to 5%. And in the second phase, again in 1991 to 2014, when LPG was introduced, during this period, that is, the growth was around 7 to 8%. And in the third phase from 2014 to 2022, now we'll see later that the growth rate. Now, from 1947 to 1964, during this period, the Prime Minister of India was the Jawaharlal Nehru. And when he became the Prime Minister of India, that Indian economy was completely devastated economy, as I said, because of loot of British. And there was again that in that Second World War impact, then India-Pakistan for Kashmir war was also there. So the Indian economy is completely corrupt. And at the time, we had a population of 36 crores and the literacy rate was only 18%. So we can say that 82% people were illiterate. And during this period, we had to import food grains under 480 from USA. And during that period, India announced its first industrial policy in 1948. India was declared as a economy through this policy, low private and mixed economy. And the basic reason behind mixed economy was during these days, our private investment or private income or income of individual at individual level was very poor or very low. And because of low income, saving was also low, and therefore investment was low. So we cannot, and that the government could not expect much investment from the private sector. And there was a need of government intervention in terms of investment, especially in the basic and key industries. And apart from basic and key industries, Government of India invested even in the consumer goods industries also. And for the first time, after formation of the Planning Commission in 1950, that the first 5-year plan was announced or was started from 1st of April 1951. Now, as I said, that first action for industrialization or to revive the India's glory in the field of industrializations, that was done through 1948, and through the mixed and that this 1948 industrial policy declares India as a mixed economy with both private and the private sector, both public and the private sector, and small and cottage industries were given the importance in this industrial policy, first industrial policy. Government restricted foreign investment, and industries were divided into 4 categories. That is exclusive in the first category, that is exclusive monopoly of central government, especially which have a strategic importance like arms and ammunition, production of atomic energy, and management of railways. In the second category, that new undertaken only by state, that is PSUs, coal, iron and steel, aircraft manufacturing, shipbuilding, telegraph, telephone, etc. And in the third category, industries to be regulated by the government, industries of basic importance. And in the fourth categories, which was not included in this tree, was included in the fourth category, and it was left for the private enterprises, individuals, and cooperatives. And in 1950s, during this period of this Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, it changes its policy, industrial policy, and it announced the new industrial policy in 1956, and that was based on the Mohanlal model. And first was based on Herod Domar growth model. And in this 1956 industrial policy, second industrial policy, or that Government of India tried to set up modern temples of independent India, like dams and electricity production, then IITs for technologies and engineering, atomic energy for energy and its security, and steel plant, which is the basic industry for each and every industries. But that the main problem with this industrial policy was too much bureaucratic control, or over this period, we have seen there was too much bureaucratic control over the industrial sector. And in 1962, again, there was Indo-China war, and because of that, the growth process or growth rate was also low. That was 3% that I said earlier. And that's the second industrial policy. Instead of, unlike the four categories of industrial policies, so four categories of industries, as was mentioned in the first industrial policy, the second industrial policy categorized industries into three categories. That was the Schedule 1, which covers public sector, 70 industries, Schedule B, covering mixed sector, public and private, 12 industries, and Schedule C, that only private industries were included. And after the death of Jawaharlal Nehru, from 1964 to 1966, that Lal Bahadur Shastri became the Prime Minister of India. And during this period, that Indo-Pak war, there was Indo-Pak war in 1965, and in the same year, there was a heavy drought, and there was food shortages in India. And as you know about the Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan slogan given by Lal Bahadur Shastri, and during his period, that he started the White Revolution, and we are all aware of the Korean contributions and the Amul contributions, or that MS Swaminathan's Green Revolutions. And for that Green Revolution, now today we are, instead of food importing country, now India has become a food exporting country. And after 1966, that when Jawaharlal Nehru died at Kaskan, that Indira Gandhi, I am not talking about this in between 13 days or 15 days short period prime ministership. Here I am talking about this the tenure of prime ministers. And during 1966 to 1977, that Indira Gandhi became the Prime Minister of India, and first he developed of Indian currency, and we know about her policy regarding the bank nationalization in 1969, where she nationalized 14 major private commercial banks, and through which she started, or she tried to deploy credit to the needy poor manufacturers, as well as the marginal farmers, as well as the poor Indians in the remote villages. And during her period, again, we saw the Indo-Pak War of 1971 for the independence of Bangladesh. From 1977 to 1980, again there were Janata Dal, and there were two prime ministers, and during those days, they announced a new industrial policy, the third industrial policy in 1977. And the demonetization was done for the first time, through which the 1,000 rupees note, 5,000 rupees note, and 10,000 rupees note were withdrawn from circulations. And thus, I want to give a brief on this 1977 industrial policy. This policy was an extension of the policy of 1956, and the main was the employment to the poor. Main idea was to give more employment to the poor and reduction in the concentration of wealth. And this policy majorly focused on decentralizations of industries, and it gave priority to small scale industries, and it created a new unit for the first time, that is called a tiny unit in the field of industries. And this policy imposed restriction on multinational companies. And again, in 1980, Indira Gandhi came to power, and she stayed as Prime Minister up to 1984. And after coming to power, she again announced the new industrial policy, in 1980. And for the first time, she took some steps to reduce this license rush. From 1948, or from, you can say from 1948 to 1980, or you can say up to 1990 also, that there was license rush was there for everything. Even to set up a very small scale industry, you need to get one license from the bureaucrats, and as a result, there was too much red tapeism and too much corruptions, and which slows down the industrialization in India. And for the first time, Indira Gandhi took some steps to reduce this license rush, and she reduced import duty also, and she made some fiscal reforms to enhance Indian economy, and she removed price control. And let us have a look. Let us have an idea about this 1980s industrial policy. The industrial policy statement of 1980 addresses that the need of promoting competition in the domestic market, modernizations, selective liberalizations, and technological upgradations. It liberalizes licensing and provided for the automatic expansion of capacity. Due to this policy, the MRTP, Monopolistic Restrictive Trade Policies Act, and Foreign Exchange Regulatory Act, FERA, at 1973 were introduced. The objective was to liberalize the industrial sector to increase industrial productivity and competitiveness of the industrial sector. The policy laid the foundation for an increasingly competitive export base and for encouraging foreign investment in high technology areas. That was the focus area of 1980s industrial policy. And after the death of Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi became the Prime Minister of India, and up to 1989. And we all also are aware of the fact that he was the first person to bring IT revolution in India. And at the same time, he brought the telecom revolution also. And he was in favor of less direct tax. And during his tenure also, we saw the drought of 1987, which affected nearly 60% of the crop area and more than 85 million people. And during this period, and we can see the reasons behind the slow growth of GDP in India. Now, after the regime of Rajiv Gandhi, during the early 90s, India faced with growing inflation, unemployment, and poverty, and low foreign exchange reserve. And there was some changes in the international scenario also. That was the collapse of the USSR, which was all-weather ally of India. And the collapse of USSR significantly impacted India's economy. And as it was a major exporter or major supplier of each and everything, and including the low-cost oil, India was receiving a huge remittance of foreign exchange from Indians working in the Middle East. But during these days, we know about the Gulf War, and Gulf War started, and the Indian people working in the Gulf countries, they had to leave, and the India government had to lose these remittances. Consequently, what was the result? That India's foreign exchange reserve fell to a low of $240 million, just enough to support only 2 weeks of imports. And India applied for loan to IMF and the World Bank, and the IMF and the World Bank offered help to India in exchange for economic reforms, and government had no options to accept those reforms. And from 1991, the new India was born under the leadership of P.V. Narasimha Rao and the Finance Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. And he announces the new industrial policy of 1991, which is also known as the LPG policy liberalizations and privatizations and the globalizations. And for the first time, the current account convertibility was possible, and there was devaluation of Indian currency, and the delicensing was also there, and the too much restrictions of bureaucrats over the industrialists through license, that, or you can say that is the license was started to extinct from India. And from 1998 to 2004, we can see that there were changes in the politics of India, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee came to India for 13 days, 13 months, and then for 5 years. From 1998 to 2004, there was political instability, and during those days, India tested a second nuclear test, and because of that, India had to face economic sanction from USA, which hampered India's economic growth. And we also remember that is the Kargil War of 1999 and drought in 2000. And during these days, that Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he introduced one important model that is called the Pura model, providing urban amenities in the rural areas to stop, to stop migration from the rural to the urban areas. During these days, there was huge inflow of people from the rural area to the urban areas, and lots of problems were there in the urban areas. And since we believe that India lives in the villages, so the improvement of villages was very important, and he started this Pura model, providing urban amenities in the rural areas. And to link these rural areas to the urban areas, he introduced the PMGSY, Prime Minister Sharak Yojana, Gramin Sharak Yojana, and he emphasized more on infrastructure and on telecom. And because of this Kargil war or drought or economic sanctions, the growth during this period was, you can say, that was slows down as compared to the earlier reform era. Now, from 2004 to 2014, that Indian growth, we can see, even if I go back to the earlier slide of this planning period, we can see that 2000, here you can see that from 2002 to 2007, which include a period of 3 years from Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, when the actual growth rate was 7.6%, and from 2007 to 2012, that actual growth was 8%. So we can say that in between, in this period for 2004 to 2014, in the last 10-year period of UPA government, the growth was around 8%, and which was the highest growth rate. And that was because of reforms. More and more reforms were introduced. And initially, when we introduced reforms in 1991, economic reforms were introduced in 1991, that time the Indian economy was completely, it was not reformed 100%. Gradually, we introduced reforms as per the need of the economy. Now, and at last from 2014 to 2018, now if we see that the second generation reform, and before going to that, just I would like to see that the first plan, if we say that the Nehru period from 1951 to 56, that the focus area was agriculture because of the shortage of food grains and all these things. That target growth rate was only 2.1%, that actual growth rate was 3.6%. Actual growth rate was much higher than the target growth rate, in spite of many problems like that in partitions and all these things. Then second economic planning that was based on the Mahalanobis committee, also Mahalanobis model, that was from 1956 to 1961. Its growth target was 4.5%, and its actual growth rate was 4.3, or you can say its actual growth was slightly lower than the targeted growth rate. And up to this, from 1951 to 1960 or 61, we can say that was the period of Nehru. From 1961 to 66, we can say in between Nehru was also there. At the same time, Lal Bahadur Shastri was also there. And during this period, the actual growth was very low. That was only 2.8%. Because of, as I said earlier, because of two wars, back-to-back two wars, 1962, Indo-China War, 1965, Indo-Pakistan War, and drought of 1965, that hampered the growth. That was the reason of the low growth of 2.8%. And if we see the fourth plan, in between 66 to 69, there was annual plan. And the fourth plan from 1969 to 74, that was where focus area was the growth with stability and self-reliance. Again, we had a very low growth of 3.3%. That was again because of the Indo-Pak War of 1971 and then several droughts and some other economic problems. And that fifth five-year plan, if you see that 1974 to 1978, the whole focus area was removal of poverty and attainment of self-reliance. That actual growth was higher than the targeted growth of 4.4%. But if we see after 90, up to the end of seventh plan, 1990, 85 to 90, the growth rate was slightly higher. From 1980s to 1990, growth was slightly higher in comparison to 1951 to 1978. As I said earlier, 1980, Mrs. Indira Gandhi started some reforms in India, and because of that, the growth of Indian economy accelerated from 5.7% to suppose to 6% to in the sixth and seventh five-year plan. But if we see from the 1991 after LPG, you can see the 8th plan, the growth rate was 6.8%. 9th plan, the growth rate was 5.4%. And as I said earlier, that 1997 to 2002, there was again Kargil War, there was drought, there was economic sanction from USA, because of which that our growth rate came down to 5.4% in the 9th plan from 1997 to 2002. And in the 10th plan, again the growth rate accelerated to 7.6, and in the 11 5-year plan from 2007 to 2012, the growth was 8%, which was quite satisfactory. Now, if I see from 2014 from 2014 to 2022, that during the period of sorry, I have written it should be 2014 to 2014 onwards, that second generation of reforms were introduced, that demonetizations, or we had the experience of demonetizations, and India introduced GST, in goods and service tax, which was the need of the hour. Then India invested huge amount on infrastructure, even in the last 5-year plans. Sorry, last annual budget, we can see there was a 23% capital expenditure, or you can say that will lead to improvement in the infrastructure. And just yesterday, India had a record in the Guinness Book of World Record that India constructed maximum land in road land in one day. That was a record, and it indicates that the importance of infrastructure in the present government. And in this Narendra Modi government, that government introduced the Make in India program, and government introduced the Startup India for the first time, and this Atmanirbhar during this COVID period, the government of India introduced Atmanirbhar Bharat, through which credit link incentives are given to the industries, and which has been proved as a successful policy for the, especially for the MSME sector. And during this period, what was Actis policy introduced by P.V. Narasimha Rao in 1991? That was converted to, that was the Lucas policy introduced by P.V. Narasimha Rao in 1991. That was converted to Actis policy, focusing that the government of India is more interested for development of Northeast, for development of trade with the East Asian nations, and Northeast India will be the gateway, for the Southeast Asian nations for India. And as a result, we have, because of all this, we can say the government is adopting a good number of fiscal policies and monetary policies, and because of that, we have improved a lot in ease of doing business, and we have seen that in the last year, that is, the privatizations is picked up through monetization of public sector. Even the Unit Trust of India was also privatized, and because of all this fiscal and monetary policy, we can say that India could achieve one of the fastest growing economy in the world. And now India is such in a position that India can lead the world in many economic fields, in terms of food grains, in terms of arms and amenities, in terms of industries. So here we have seen that India, which was the largest economy from 1st century to 14th century, and from 14th century, India's positions to world economy was gradually declining because of invasion from different rurals, from different areas of the world, and the worst position for India was from the British Raj, or during this British Raj, India, which which was the leader of the world, and it became to be a, you can say that at the time of independence, we had to import even our food grains. And there was so much criticism on against this import of PL480 wheat, which was, some people says that the quality of the wheat was so poor that that was not possible for people to eat. Now that the same India is was exporting wheat, and now the world is looking towards India for wheat, for sugar, for paddy, and India government is considering the need of the world. That means India, within a short period of time, or we can say within a period of 75 years of its independence, instead of importing agricultural goods, India has proved to be a major exporter of agricultural goods, to whom the world is looking at. At the same time, we can talk about the role of India in the world we have seen during the COVID-19, when India was exporting COVID vaccines, and all over the world was looking towards India for supply of vaccines. So India is expected to regain its past glory, within 2015, and some estimation shows that by the end of this century, India will become the largest economy, surpassing even the China. So that was my presentation for today's, and for reference, that in today's economy, everywhere everything you will get, no? But if you see the Indian economy, but for the Indian economy during British period, or Indian economy prior to independence, if you want to see, or if you want to study some books, you can see the World Economy Volume 2, that is historical statistic by Agnes Madison, then Glimpses of World History by Jawaharlal Nehru, The Era of Darkness, The British Empire in India by Shashi Tharoor, The Reset, Regaining India's Economic Legacy by Subramaniam Swamy, then Economic History of India in the Victoria Age of R.C. Dutt. So these are my recommended book, and if you want to go through the economic history, if you want to check the glory of India before independence, you can, if you once go through this book, you will feel. Thank you very much for your patience hearing.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. As of now, I haven't seen any questions in Q&A box, and not even in the chat box. And it's a very enlightening lecture. Thanks for providing that British era and whatever the economic development taken place in India. So whatever the looting was happened so far. So you enlightened us with the great lecture, sir. Thank you very much for that. As of now, no questions, sir. So
Thank you.
I'm very much thankful on behalf of HRDC and on behalf of Department of Commerce, Pujoti. And thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Thank you.